I want to help out, and a way you can do that is by sharing and giving. And I especially want to help out my brothers and sisters who are having times of depression. If you're having depression and you're maybe a younger guy or gal, maybe you're around my age, maybe you're older, some of my tips that I'm going to share with you right now might help you. I'm not saying that they will, they might. It's not going to cure, it's not going to completely take it away. If you have reoccurring depression or mood swings or anything along those lines, you're going to have it until you're done for. For the time being, though, in your skin, what do you do to get out of depression? Now, there's a lot of tips people have for relief or relieving it or making the day a little better so that way you can get through it with depression. One is dark, deep depression. There's maybe a handful of times, if that, where in my time I've been there, and other people, there's no doubt, have been in a deeper depression than I've ever been. The complexity of the mind, I understand this. So to convey this across to you, one must understand that there's varying degrees to depression. So the thing that I do is I have to crawl out. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll say to myself, okay, health and depression are interrelated, and every time I've ever been in a dark depression, I have been unhealthy. And one thing about depression is couch lock and not moving around, laying in bed, sitting on a couch, doing whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's staring at a wall or even having your eyes closed. Go straight to some kind of cardiovascular exercise. So recently, last year, I was at a point, and so I picked up some Dance Dance Revolution. It was during the winter time, and it's cold here where I'm at. It gets cold during the winter time. And so I had this Dance Dance Revolution, and I started using it, and it was not good. I was very out of shape, and I was doing that for maybe 20 minutes a day, and then I would do a little more, and then a little more, and then I was coming around. My depression was lessening. It was going down some, still there. And so I understand that doing any kind of exercise or doing laundry or moving around is not the same as doing some kind of cardiovascular type thing. So I went over to a park nearby, and I'm running around in the middle of the night in the cold, and my health was coming around, and all the running I was doing was rough. It was not simple. I'm by myself. It's in the dark. I don't care what I look like. Whatever. I probably might look like Sasquatch out there. I don't care. I'm going around, running around, And then within a couple of weeks, I'm running around even more gracefully, and everything is going. And within about a month, doing the Dance Dance Revolution and doing the running, I had come around. So that's one thing. And two is, even when I'm doing pretty well cardiovascular wise, depression's still there. The mood swings are still there. And so to move on to the next thing is with food. And food is an important part of your health. Yeah, it's obvious. It's also important to understand that blood flow is important as well to your brain. Not only to your heart and your organs, it's to your brain. If you have good blood flow to your brain, you're going to be better off. And something that I'll share is that insulin also has to do with blood flow. Not only glucose going into your cells, it also has to do with your blood flow in your brain. So if you eat a lot of saturated fats, you eat a lot of animal fats, you eat a lot of cheese and French fries and whatever that are fried in palm oils and whatever, your insulin sensitivity is going to go down. So your cell uptake is going to be hindered. So if you eat on the leaner side, not necessarily 100%, if you eat on the leaner side, then you're that much better. So you're exercising, and in the pit of depression, the last thing you want to do is exercise. And the last thing you care about is anything. So anything that you do, anything that you go toward, you're really pushing yourself to do it. It's not I'm going to go out and get it. No. You're really pushing yourself. So you really are becoming two people in your mind. It might be something that you possibly do not understand. If you've gotten out of depression, then maybe this is more of a reminder to you, because you already know this. You just lose track of it. And I always come around to finding myself in this same thing over and over again. And it's roughly the same thing over and over again. Got to get up, and I've got to exercise. And that's a big part of it. The more you sit around in that depression, the further into that hole you're going to go. And the further you're going to be tired when you get up. The more you're going to be exhausted by simply doing the slightest things. That's depression. And so check out yourself in your own health way. Evaluate yourself. Put yourself through the ropes. Get out there and start off slow and gradually get yourself back up. It's not a good idea to go straight into it. Not a good idea. Gradually get yourself, whether it's riding a recumbent bike or going to some Planet Fitness once a week, even if that's a hell for you, just do it. Just go there once a week. It's complete apathy. I realize this. And so another tip is, and this is abstract, and this is through some things that I've read about. There's a lot of the bipolar studies and depression studies where they do a controlled research thing with certain people over a certain period of time. Is glutamic acid or glutamate protein or amino acid, which your body can make on its own, there's some issues with that inside the brain, to keep it simple. And ion channels, such as the potassium ion channels and the osmosis, pretty much the electrolytes, the pump mechanism of the cellular functioning of the brain is not functioning as it should. And adding glutamic acid in is not necessarily the point I'm making, still self-evident. If I cut back on my protein consumption, and I have my saturated fats down, and I cut back on my protein consumption, after a day and a half or two, I'll start to feel a little better. And this is pretty much almost every single time I do this. So this is self-evident. So something you can kick around yourself. One thing that's high in glutamic acid is egg yolks, chicken. Those are mainly the two big ones. Cheese. If you cut back on all protein consumption, and you have your fats on the lower end, saturated fats and such, you're just eating some walnuts, and you're eating some good nuts, not too many of them, having some fats, not too much, then for me, I come around feeling a little better. And my mood swings are still there, and I'm not 100%. And the older I get, the higher it gets. It's getting more and more to where I'm not getting on top of it as much still. Through the process or through the doing of this, it's still roughly the same. It's still coming back roughly the same. Another thing is any kind of high potassium foods or high sodium or high potassium foods. Those have, if I'm eating a lot of it, I can be in a very big low with apathy and everything else, depression and mood swings. So let me give you an example. If I get a jug of grape juice, or I get a thing of bananas, and I eat those bananas, let's say I was to have those bananas tonight. Let's say I had 4 bananas tonight. That'd be pretty healthy, huh? Eating 4 bananas? No. Later on, after I've digested it, I'll be very depressed. Very depressed. And I know this self-evident. And this is not something that you are going to be told about. This is not something that is something that you can read about. I've never, ever read anyone talking about this, ever. So this is my own finding. This is self-evident. And this is possibly, if I die in 10 seconds, this is the greatest thing I probably can share with people that have depression or mood swings. Is it universal for all depression? I don't know, because I'm not multiple people. And I've never talked to anybody about this. So this is between me and you. And you're out there, you're doing your thing, and you're listening to what some people are saying that's good for you, that make money off of your detriment. If you get better, they don't make more money. If they tell you to take this, and then it might be okay for you, and you might have to go through 12 or 15 different things before you start feeling better, that doesn't really sound that doesn't really sound like a person that for one, they're not they're not a bipolar person. There's most of them. They're not a person that has a condition that you have. And they're saying to you here, take this, and are they taking it themselves? So I'll go ahead and roll on over that, because that's a touchy subject there. Because I know that some people are very somewhat religious about that, and I understand that a human is on their track to take care of whatever they've got to do by all means. And I'm not saying that you should do any of this. I'm simply saying this is my account, and maybe it could do something for you too. Because if I would have never have known any of these things, I might have been to a point in my day where I would have not been here anymore. It's very possible. Because you got to remember, there's a degree. You know, there's 14-year-old kids that are taking their own lives. There's kids under 10 that are taking their own lives. So you've got to understand this, that depression can be very strong, that we've never even experienced ourselves at a point that maybe one day we will. And if we are not knowing what we can do for ourselves, we might not make it past that day, and that might be it for us. Because there's people that have a lot going for them, that you would think that they'd have enough happiness and joy. They have money, they have millions, they have a beautiful spouse, beautiful kids, they have a wonderful house, and they still take their lives. So you understanding depression, and they still might have been taking something, and they might have known what I'm talking about, and they never talked about it. Maybe they figured it out and they never talked about it, and they still took their lives. So there's not really a guarantee to really any of this. So I think that there's one-on-one, someone that's in the trenches, that's been through it, that knows some of these things, and I'm saying that those are pretty big. A lot of people will agree with the exercise and the running or whatever it is to get your cardiovascular system going, and the food, eating, as it said, is clean, that would be a leaner diet, eating clean, or eating foods that are labeled as clean or healthy. A lot of this is through doing. I think that's pretty big, though. The glutamic acid and the potassium and the sodium. And the interesting thing is some of the medication for bipolar has to do with the electrolytes inside of the brains, more or less. You can go into that and read all about it. So Lamictal is, if I remember, it has to do with the calcium ion channels in the brain. This has to do with electrolytes. It's for sure a medication that they give to people that have seizures, and that seizures has to do with the electrolytes in the brain, more or less. A lot of the mood swings that I'll have is, a lot of times I'll notice that I'm eating quite a bit of protein. And sometimes I'll even be sitting there eating the protein, and I have X amount on my plate, and I don't really want to eat the rest of it. Still, I don't want to put it in the Tupperware, and I don't want to do this. So I'll just go ahead and eat it, because I'll just eat it. And I'm forcing it down. And I really don't need as much protein as I generally eat. And I think that that's a pretty big thing towards my moods. And the potassium, taking in too much potassium and sodium, and I'm going to point out potassium though. I'll go back to 2012, I think it was. I was juicing, and I wasn't even taking in much protein. And I was taking in a lot of bananas and a lot of vegetables and a lot of whatever, when you do your juicing and you have your juicer. I was taking in an enormous amount of calcium and potassium and any other vitamin and mineral. And that was probably the most unhealthy I've ever been. And I was 31, 32 at the time. I did that for about 2 months. And I stopped. So you tell me, I remember sitting in a chair and my brain being so far out. And my moods were all over the place. I had so much hate inside of me and so much frustration and all of those mood swings that maybe you can identify with yourself. And here's a diet that would be what one would consider extremely healthy. And here I was falling apart bad. And it didn't take long for it to happen. And I remember I was very bloated and my stomach was sticking out and everything. And I've done all kinds of food things, keto, and if I'm going to bring up the keto, that's going to dehydrate you. And when I would do the keto, I would be in a euphoric state until maybe 3 or 4 weeks later. And then my metabolism had gone down so much, and I had been taking in salt and electrolytes to compensate, that I was also very depressed at the end of that. And I had done carb cycling and all those different things. And when I was doing the carb cycling, my moods were pretty good. And one thing about when you have your carbohydrates come down, you're going to be dehydrated to a point. It means you're losing electrolytes. I was losing potassium salts. I was losing sodium. So there's a lot of affirmations towards the electrolyte thing, and mostly potassium. If I'm singling my foods down to where one of my main carbohydrate sources is potatoes, my depression will be up. If I take them out, it'll come down. Not gone, it'll come down. Mood swings still there. Frustrations, anger, a myriad of moods. And if you're a moody person, you know what I'm talking about. What do you think about it? Is there anything that you've gone through where you can identify with any of this that I'm talking about? Do you yourself have some tips? I've been through video. No one talks about food having anything to do with it, electrolytes having anything to do with it, glutamic acid having anything to do with it. I'm saying, I'm coming out of the woods here to say, hey, guess what? Check this out. Anyway, if this helps you out, it's my pleasure. Some people say, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book for people. No. I'll make a video and say it all in one video. And if it helps some humans out, my fellow humans, then it is my pleasure, for goodness sake. So go ahead and comment on it if you want. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll get back to you. I'll write you back on it, whatever I can put in. I might not have covered something that might be kind of obvious that I skipped over. Anyway, good night.